everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you're as excited as I am to have this time to talk about all the possibilities our children have with the, their future desires and goals. So, if you're following, if you're joining me live or on the replay, I would love to have you say something in the comments. So let's think of what we're going to do. Um, I want you to type in go if you want to receive more information on unschooling to university to college, homeschooling to college, all the things we're going to be talking about today. So type in go. Okay. So I am Gail Hanlon. Um, I've been a home educating parent for just about 30 years and have gone through the gambit of pretty much everything because my kids were very different to each other and they had very different learning styles. So, adapting to all the kids and my life as a single parent and their goals and helping them achieve those goals and not doing anything when they didn't want me to do anything. That's probably the hardest thing at all. In total, with all my kids, when they wanted to just do it themselves and didn't want any help from me, that was the hardest. So I want to welcome you here if you're thinking about homeschooling, if you're new to homeschooling, if you've been homeschooling forever, join in. And if you would like to be a guest on this show, it's super simple. I'm going to put the link up here on the screen so that you can see it and join in. And okay, I'm also going to take off this. Okay, good. Now I'm going to leave that bar running at the bottom so that you have my phone number and my email in case you have more information. Also, just to let you know, if you would like to have more of a conversation, I'm holding a Zoom chat after this from 4 to 5. So you're welcome to continue joining in on the conversation. And this is a conversation, so please don't be afraid to put your comments, your questions, your concerns into the comments so that I can bring them up on screen, show people that they're not the only ones, because I guarantee that you will not be the only one with the question that you have. Okay, so let's get started. Can kids who don't have a high school diploma get into college and university? A lot of us, most of us, have been conditioned by the education system to think that you can't do anything without a high school diploma. That creates a lot of fear and stress for families that don't may not have that option or the ability. Perhaps they wanted something different, or let's say they were performers that needed tutoring and couldn't go to school all the time. Um, athletes, young athletes who travel the world doing whatever sport it is that they do. I once had a student who was an international soccer player, and she was all over the world at soccer tournaments, and so she did all of her own learning. So to put this in perspective, I want to give a couple of definitions. So first of all, I want to explain compulsory education. It's a term that's thrown around. It's out there. People think about that, maybe not into that simple term, but compulsory education. What does that mean? Let's examine it. actually means that the state or the government is compelled to provide education for its citizens, for us, for the little people. The government is required and compelled to provide educational opportunities for its citizens. What does compulsory education not mean? It does not mean that the citizens are compelled to take and make use of or be involved in or required to do that education that the government is providing. So I'm going to say that again because you need to let it sink in. It is not that the citizens are required to be part of that system. So that is why, actually, the Education Act states a child or a person is excused from attendance at school. Um, when you, as a parent, excuse your child from school, you excuse yourself and your child from any of the oversight or the responsibilities that a child in the system would have to do. Um, so you are no longer required to fulfill those obligations that are put on a child that is in the system. So I'm just going to go to a website here and I'm going to bring it up on screen. Hey, family, can you be a little more quiet, please? Thanks. Hey, it's okay. It happens. All right. So I'm just going to get a wonderful book here to bring up. Actually, I googled um, homeschooling to university. So, and this is probably something that you've all done if it's been on your mind. So let's see. And again, viewers, say go in the comments, and I will make sure that you get extra special goodies from being here with us. Okay. And if you want to be a guest on the show again, the link is right there. All right. Okay. All right. We are here. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong one. Here we go. Googling. Googling homeschooling to university. You can also do homeschooling to college. So here are common questions that people ask. Can you go to uni if you're homeschooled? Can homeschoolers go to university? Canada. Is it harder for homeschoolers to get into college? What percentage of homeschoolers go to college? That's a really good question. There are a lot of studies that have been done in the United States, not so many that I've been aware of here in Canada, and that's a contributing factor to. Hello, Lindsay. I am so glad to see you. It's wonderful. Hey, um, and you're very welcome. I am so glad to do these because there's so much misinformation out there. So thank you for joining me. Um, and so here, a homeschool Ryerson page, homeschool students admission to university, um, and one of the best places to find information, and I do say one because there are many, and always check your sources, of course. Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents. The Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents, OFTP, has been around for a long time, and I was the secretary for OFTP many years ago, about 20 years ago. Um, and it was so exciting to meet and help people. It was a very tumultuous time in homeschooling. I want to give you the quick answer to the question, can homeschoolers go to university and college? It's yes. It's yes in every way, shape, or form. Medical school, law school, every type of education. And now with the internet, it's even more open and available. So back in the day, we used to have a lot more challenges because every university and college had their own admissions department, and different universities had different requirements. So one of the things that the Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents did was they worked in conjunction with the admissions departments of all of Ontario and subsequently all of Canada to get all the admissions synchronized, um, and a language that would allow for a student to apply once and then shoot that application off to many different universities. Now, that is one way. We're going to get into the other ways. But here on the Ontario Federation of Teaching College site, we have admissions information for homeschoolers. Um, and it has Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario. Look at the list in Ontario. I mean, it is the Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents after all. But yeah, we've got this great list. And we've got a lot of clarity and a lot of good communication with the universities and colleges. Um, okay. We've also got Quebec and Saskatchewan. Nothing in Yukon yet, but we're getting there. Okay, so this is one resource. One of the resources that I had when my kids were younger and looking at university. Talk too much, need moisture. This wonderful book, And What About College, by Kathy Cohen. Fabulous author, great research from the United States, but still primarily all the same fundamental information on how to get in and the numerous ways if you want to go to post-secondary school that you can. So I'm going to go to the, before we had all the freedom that we have on the internet now, this was, seriously going, filling out the forms, sending them off to the different universities and giving them your transcript. Well, what if you don't have a transcript? There are a few ways to do that. A lot of homeschoolers make their own transcript. The parents and the students usually will decide what they've done, what as a portfolio perhaps of what would qualify them to go to the university. And just going to swap back out here. And to put together a resume of what they've learned, how they've learned it, and why they want to go to that university. Now, because it's now synchronized, you can just fill out the application forms. You can put homeschooled or home educated. I prefer the term home educated because it doesn't muddy the waters with the word school. So, home educated. And for instance, my daughter, my youngest daughter, applied to Niagara College, um, filled out all the forms, put home educated, and was accepted to all three courses that she applied for. She was just 17 when she did that. So she was accepted before any questions were asked at all. So when we went to the registrar at Niagara College, they said, okay. And she asked, do I have to do anything? They said, well, you can take the mature student test. Now, you may have heard that the mature student test is only for people 19 and over. It is. If you went to school, if you were in the government school system and either didn't get a diploma or didn't finish or just never, even if you got your diploma and you don't have access to the transcript, you can take the mature student test to see if you, and that's for university and college, same test. So when you write the test, so for instance, my daughter never been to school, a government school, apart from visiting one day with her sibling who was one of my foster children. So she'd never written an essay. She'd never done an exam. She had been completely homeschooled, home educated, unschooled, um, not the same thing as uneducated. Education and learning are two different things. So she learned what she wanted to learn, when she wanted to learn, how she wanted to learn it. So it was more embedded in her brain. So she was very apprehensive about taking this 4.5 hour mature student test because she'd never been in school. There was a free rewrite. If you get it wrong the first time, you can go back and do it again. So even just as a learning experience, going and writing the test was an education. So she went in very nervous. She had only had a few hours to prepare because the information that they sent her, she did not get the week before she was supposed to do it. They sent her a practice test. She never got it until 3 hours before the actual exam. So she really didn't have more time than just glancing over it. She went in. We waited patiently, bated breath. 4.5 hour test. 2 hours later, she comes out. Smile on her face. First words out of her mouth. That was fun. She enjoyed doing it. It was challenging but fun. She loves learning because she didn't ever lose her natural love of learning. And we got home, and a couple of hours later, she received a phone call saying that she had achieved 90% on the mature student test at just past 17, having never gone to school before. So that's one example. Another book I want to bring to your attention is by Grace Llewellyn, Real Lives, 11 Teenagers Who Don't Go to School. This book explores 11 teenagers who did different things than school. Some of them went on to post-secondary, some of them didn't. It's an excellent book. But now we have a Canadian book, thanks to, and I'm going to bring this up on the screen now, thanks to a lovely woman named Judy Arnall. And here is her information. I did try to get her on the show. I'm hoping that she'll be able to come and be a guest sometime in the future. Um, she has written a book called Unschooling to University, which explores 30 different kids and children, people, adults, young adults who went to university and or college. And if you go to unschoolingtouniversity.com, which is right there on the top, you will see um, the information that she's got there. And huge amount of resources. This woman is fantastic and prolific. I talk a lot. She does, she puts those words into um, writing. So she has documented all of the things that I'm talking about today, and that most of us who have been homeschooling for a long time would be able to attest to. So, but she does it brilliantly. So this book, Unschooling to University, there's a video, you can look her up on YouTube, encapsulates how children's brain develop, how children learn without teaching, how children learn without teaching, and why self-directed education is the most motivating and individualized education. When you are learning something, if you're not interested in it, you might be able to pass a test on it. But honestly, do you remember what you were doing in grade 8, grade 9? You did all those tests. Could you rewrite them now with the same or better success? Who knows? So Judy's book is amazing. It looks like this: Unschooling to University. University. Can't speak sometimes. And and she also mentions Dr. Peter Gray. Dr. Peter Gray's study in 2013 was a study of 75 grown homeschoolers, those children with the least number of formal schooling, either in a classroom or homeschooled, were more likely to go on to post-secondary learning. That has been our experience in the homeschooling community as well, she says. The more time children had for play and self-directed learning, the more likely they were to continue learning and become motivated for greater stimulation outside the family. So, and the other myth that she talks about here is that unschoolers tend to choose more of the humanities and the arts. And that was the case in my older daughter. My older daughter went to university at 13 in classical mythology. And that was her passion. That was what she loved. But the studies suggest that more homeschoolers tend to choose STEM options rather than the humanities and arts. So really do take a good look at your child and talk to them, because it's about the way they perceive things. So I'm going to move on now because we're 24 minutes past the hour. Okay. Another one of the great resources that we have is the people in Ontario, the homeschoolers, the families, the people that I know from when I started my homeschooling group 28 years ago, 26 years ago, because all the groups that we had in where I was living were all church based, and I wasn't affiliated with a specific church that had a homeschool group. Um, and the people I met weren't from one specific faith. Now, it's wonderful. If you've got a faith community or a network that you are with that's all like-minded, it's fantastic. Absolutely. Ours, I met families who were homeschooling who were Muslim, who were Mormon, who were pagan. There were some that were nothing, like they were agnostic or atheist, but that none of those differences separated us from our primary common belief that regardless of what our differences were, we had the right to teach our own children what we believed was good for them. We had that right, that we have that diversity choice. So that homeschooling group that I started with some other families, one of the people that my oldest daughter played with in that group way back when, is one of the authors of this page. So my good friend Marion Buchanan is one of the authors. And this is a really simple URL, people. This is so simple. This is at universityadmissions.ca. Universityadmissions.ca. I've just typed it into the comments, so it should be coming up shortly. There it is. Hopefully I've spelled it correctly. Universityadmissions.ca. When you go to universityadmissions.ca, you can see the information for homeschoolers. And these are a few articles and myth busting. We do a lot of myth busting here. And I guarantee these articles will give you accurate information, which is, it's hard. If you're just starting this because of COVID and you've seen that something needs to change and this is the beginning for you, um, you're going to be bombarded with so much information, so many different alternatives for curriculum. I've seen there's between 100 to 500 requests for joining homeschooling groups all over Ontario every single day. I'm in one group that has 5,000 people, and they're getting over 100 requests a day to join. So you are not alone in not liking what's going on. And there are um, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So you want to make sure it's reputable. And even if it's coming from somebody you trust, always check it out. Always check it out. So we're going to look very quickly at this 7 ways to get into university without a high school diploma. And here we go. Let's start here. And if you're not an Ontario homeschooler, you can still get into university without, and it goes to the HS. Get my acronyms right. OFTP, the Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents website, I believe. So, as a mature student, generally requires waiting until the age of 21. Now, you heard me earlier talk about my daughter who got into college at 17, taking the mature student test. If you are a homeschooler or a home educator and you want to take the mature student test, there is no age limit. There is no age requirement. You could be 12 years old. And if you want to try the test, you can, if you're home educated. If you have been to government school, you may not. Apparently, I was wrong earlier. I thought it was 19. It's 21. 21, you can take the mature student test unless you're home educated, and then you can take it anytime you want. So that's one huge difference right there. When you have a child or a student or a person in your life who is absolutely manic about something that they love, you don't want to squash that and quell that interest. You want to help it grow. And uh, you can actually go to universities and colleges, to the best of my knowledge. You can audit any course. I know in universities it's absolutely true. You can audit any classes. So if your young child is interested in something, and I do mean young, not just teenagers. I ran a home daycare while I was homeschooling as a single mom. I would take the whole kit and caboodle, all six of us, because one child was interested in a subject. And we'd go in, we'd audit the course. If I had to take a baby out and deal with the diaper, I did, you know. Um, but it also taught the kids that there are different places to behave in different ways. So they saw everybody sitting down and paying attention. So they sat down and they paid attention. I would bring things, quiet things for them to do. And the child that I had that was interested in whatever it was would just drink in all the information. So auditing, of course, is always an option. Number two here, with the presentation of standardized test scores, so the GED, the SAT, the ACT, um, apparently it says not the GED. The GED is provide evidence of an education generally equivalent to that of high school education, and is commonly accepted in the workforce in lieu of a high school diploma, but is not accepted by Ontario universities as a suitable academic assessment. So, um, oh, unfortunately, and this is true, unfortunately, carries with it a stigma of being a high school dropout. But to be honest, you if you've never been to school, there is nothing to say you can't start your own business. There is nothing to say you can't be an entrepreneur, hire people. You don't have to have a high school diploma to start your own business. Hire 50 people, do it. Just watch TikTok. OMG. So many small business people young people doing businesses that are doing very well. Um, so some people are not interested in going to post-secondary school, but if you are, the SAT, those tests are approved. But the mature student test is is really, really good. Number three, with a year of university courses received in an open university. So we're going to talk about open universities. Here's a great one, and I'm just going to remove this from the top here and hide this so you can see more. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they're free open courseware. So free, free open courseware. So you do some courses online. You've got MIT. Here we've got Coursera. Coursera is from multiple different universities. Um, so you can do the Edinburgh University course, and you have that as a university certification. Now, another thing to remember, MITs are free, Coursera's do charge. However, there's always an option for auditing the course. You don't get the certificate, but you do get the content and the information. So if you're interested in the content and learning the subject matter, but do not need a certificate, then you don't need to pay for it at all. Another one that you can make use of is Udemy. Udemy has really reasonable ones. Always check where they're coming from. because individuals as well as universities can put up courses here. So you do have a lot of options there. And I'm going to go back to our page here. Number 4, as a transfer applicant, Ontario does not have junior colleges, but some provinces do. So that's another one. Number 5, with a portfolio, including homemade transcripts. Yes, homemade transcripts, samples of work. It should include any standardized tests or letters or work from evaluated work from tutors or outside sources. One university in Ontario who administers their own testing and interviews for homeschoolers does not require proof of an academic background. And the source for that is there if you want to go check it out. 6, with the top 6 unique to Ontario, some Ontario universities will allow students to present just their senior year, grade 12, 6 grade 12 credits. Now, if you're working on doing your own transcript, the method that they assess is 120 hours per credit. So if you've done 120 hours of whatever it is that you're studying and interested in, then you can count that as a credit. So just keep track. There are a lot of ways to keep track too. With that being said, there was something else there that just disappeared from my brain. See, it happens. Okay. Correspondence schools as well will do this. So yes, I was talking about making your own transcript. If you are wanting to do credits, and that could be those 6 grade 12 credits, there are lots of ways you can do them. So one of the ways is virtual high school. And this is one of my favorite places. I love where it's located. You don't have to go there. It's virtual, but it is in Bayfield, Ontario. And jump over to here. And here you can register, get those credits, and then you have a transcript from a private high school. There you go. VHS is an inspected private school granting OSSD credits. Our Ontario Ministry of Education number is this, and they have an accreditation report as well. Highly recommend that if you want to go the credit route. There's also MDEC. There's also virtual, I've forgotten the other, virtuallearning.ca. There's also the ILC, which is the Independent Learning Center that's run through the Ministry of Education. And they have courses on TV Ontario and all sorts of things. So if you're wanting to do actual credits, there are an abundance of places that you can go to get them. You do not need to go to high school to get them. Okay, so going back to our list of 7 here with a little smooth talking. Who knows what can happen if you just walk in with a good attitude and ask. Making connections in the admissions departments or with professors can open doors. Let me give you an example. Another good friend of mine in London, her son at 13 years old was absolutely um, determined to be in medicine. And as such, he had already, um, I'm going to just pull back here for a minute. He had already taught himself all the anatomy in Latin and and all those words for the different parts of the anatomy. He was able to become uh, or get an opportunity to job shadow a neonatal surgeon at the University Hospital in London. Every Thursday, he would job shadow this professor and surgeon. And that's how he got in. The professor and surgeon was so impressed with his devotion, his um, attitude, his drive, his interest, his love and passion of the profession. Um, it was a no brainer. He was in his course. Um, Another one that is also how my oldest daughter got in. She audited the classical mythology course for a while. She audited a number of other courses that were affiliated with it. And the professor wrote a letter and she was permitted to attend. Just like that. It can happen. It really can if you're motivated. Um, Another young person I know personally at 15 got into the law department. And who else? Oh, there was also uh, a 16-year-old who had never been to school. She completed her independent learning. And at 18, she decided that because she was a dual citizen in the United States, she decided she wanted to go to the Navy. Well, the Navy needed her transcript, which I helped her write up. We wrote up her transcript of all of her alternative home based learning, and she was able to get into the US Navy based on that handwritten transcript and a conversation on the phone. So don't ever rule out something that you really, really want badly enough. Keep asking, keep searching, keep looking. Um, and those doors will open for you. They really will. Okay, I'm going to go back to our paper here, so generously provided by Marion Buchanan and her cohorts. Still worried about getting into university without a high school diploma? These final thoughts should put the issue in perspective. So, um, university admissions are generally governed by policy, not law. So, depending on the situation, you could get in. Um, I also know of a 12-year-old who got into the actuarial sciences department at Western with just auditing the class and getting a relationship with the professor that, you know, so he knew he was dedicated. It's never too late to go to university. So doesn't matter. You can always go. Learning is more important than schooling. So true. How many people don't love that one part of forget the movie now, where he's in the bar. It's Matt Damon, and what's that movie, Hen? That movie with Matt Damon where he's in the bar and he's talking about how the library is a better education than a university. Ah, you can write it in the comments to remind me what it is, but it's very true, very true. Um, so that is another fabulous source of encouragement and empowerment to let you know that it's all possible. It is all possible. We went through some alternatives there, and okay. I want to share with you something that is a personal passion of mine because this is also another friend of mine who moved from Ontario to Halifax. Um, and she has the geekschooling.guide.com. So if your child is a geek, you know, that's okay. We're all geeks together. I personally absolutely love. I'm just gonna get rid of this. Absolutely love um, this one here. Learning with Star Trek. If your kids love science fiction and are interested in STEM choices, there's a whole heap here, including a Starfleet Academy curriculum. If you look hard enough, you will find everything you want on the internet. So now that we've talked about a lot of things, I am always happy to help families know how to do things. I believe one of the things I love most is eliminating obstacles from your path or your children's path. So if your uh, child says they want to be a marine biologist, well, be a marine biologist. Um, go look at ponds, go take notes, start researching. You don't have to wait to be educated by somebody else. Your brain is capable of doing that itself. And if you support your children with the things that they're interested in, it is very, very much less stressful than having to jump through a zillion hoops that put you in um, a larger competition field. And what I mean by that is just a second. Mm. It has been reported that 1 in 10,000 get into Harvard. And that is true of people who have high school diplomas. Much bigger pool. 1 in 1,000 homeschoolers get into Harvard. Much smaller pool. The Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents had many received many letters from universities all over the United States. All those universities were trying to encourage Canadian families who were homeschooling to send their children to universities in the United States. They were poaching our kids. Why? Because they knew that the homeschooling kids were far more motivated, far more serious, more diligent, and had not lost that natural love of learning that happens when kids go to school. I think a very good example of that is um, a child finishes high school and you say, what do you want to do with your life? And they'll say, I don't know. So they go to college or university just because they're supposed to. And ask any university professor how frustrating it is to be in front of a room full of people who are just there because it's a prerequisite for something else, or that their parents are paying for it, or it's just because isn't that what you do? It's kind of like the same question that people get when you say, why did you choose public school? I've gotten asked a lot of times, why did I choose to homeschool, home educate? And then I have to defend my choice, right? As a homeschooling parent, you have to defend your choice and say why you chose that. But how many people ask those who are going into public school, why did you choose public school? They really didn't know they had a choice. So when you ask a student from a high school, what do you want to do? Oh, I guess I'll go to university or college just because that's what people do. When they come out of university or college and are competing for jobs at Tim Hortons with other people who have degrees and PhDs and all sorts of diplomas, um, they will generally say, um, I'm keeping my options open. Homeschoolers know what they want because they haven't been bombarded with information that isn't relevant to their interests, their desires, their passions, and their choices. Allowing our kids to lead the way in what they're interested in, encouraging them, supporting them, helping them get more of what they're interested in is only going to benefit them. There's the story of a gentleman who, as a child, his parents were absolutely mortified that all he did all day long was read Tolkien books by Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and all of those, and he would not do any of his schoolwork or any of his studies. Well, as an adult, guess who the person was who was the main source of information for all the Lord of the Rings movies? He was the world's renowned expert on Tolkien and Middle Earth and the Lord of the Rings. So his passion led to a career that he never could have planned. Nobody writing a curriculum would have written that down and say, do this to become that. The majority of people who find their passion in life, you know, only 5% of people who have degrees are working in the field that they got their degree in. So think about all the options. Make sure you really get to know your children and give them all the support, nurturing, love, and attention that you can. And you'll see. So we have so many options to get into post secondary education. You don't even have to leave home now. You could search any university or any higher education anywhere in the world. And now, especially because of COVID, they all have options. And when and if we're able to go back to physical classes for universities and things like that, um, depending on second waves, third waves, whatever, um, if you are doing those things online or helping your child get to those courses online, generally not necessarily expensive, but there's never a reason to say you can't do it. So with that, I want to say thank you everybody for joining me, and I hope I've answered some of your questions. I hope I've given you some places to look online that will help, that kind of um, clears some of the static. And I highly recommend continuing to ask questions, but also do your research first. I'm on a lot of homeschooling groups, and um, those groups are getting a ton, 100 to 500 a day, new people asking the same questions. How do I do this? What do I do? Where do I start? How do so please be patient with us homeschoolers um, who are trying to help. There are groups for COVID homeschooling. So finding out what your local boards are doing, you know. So take a breath. My best advice to all of you out there is breathe, relax, and build your relationships with your kids, getting to know them, bonding, and encouraging them as much as you possibly can, and listen to them, play with them, read with them. If they're older, let them read to you. Be available when they're interested and they want to tell you something. Best advice. And remember, never say never. My grandfather always said, nothing is impossible. Maybe improbable, but it's not impossible. So I'm going to leave you there. Have a wonderful day. Everybody enjoy your day. And remember, if you typed go, or if you're watching the replay and you type go into the comments, I will make sure I send you a great resource for getting to university. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye for now, everybody.